All right, and we're live. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Perfect. Okay, hello. My name is Zach Horowitz. I am a senior at Colorado State University. I'm studying health and exercise science, and I'm an intern here at APS in wellness. And so today I'm doing the third and final part of a series of lunch and learns. And this one today is going to be about behavior change, specifically geared towards exercise behavior change, but behavior change nevertheless. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So I'll start us all off with a little icebreaker here. Um, what do you do to stay consistent when things are difficult? You can feel free to put that in the chat. For me, when things are difficult for me, having a nice plan for each upcoming day is a great way for me to stay consistent. If I know what time I'm going to be doing certain things, that really helps me have everything ready, all my ducks in a row, right? Yeah, so I'll just
I
give that a
think
second here, and I'll put in.
think for me, like having a goal um, of what I want to accomplish is helpful.
A goal. Good. Yeah, having a goal is very important. Um, I will be talking a little bit about that today. Let's see. Go to Zumba 3 times a week, regardless of what's happening. Good. Good. Yeah. You have to whatever's important. You got to prioritize that, right? All right. Let's go ahead and one more. Use of sticky notes to not miss anything I have coming up. Yeah, yeah, good. Having little notes, reminders nearby you and keeping them easily accessible, easily right in sight, right? Out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. So if it's in sight, you'll keep it in mind. Yeah, I think that's a good tool to use for sure. So let's go ahead and get into it. So again, this is behavior change, but about exercise. So I want to start it off by saying that about 23% of adults in the U.S. are meeting the recommended guidelines for exercise. Only 23, so that's not even a quarter of U.S. adults. So that means that 3/4 of the U.S. population aren't exercising enough, or potentially not at all. And I think this is a very big. I mean, I would even call it an epidemic type of thing where people aren't exercising, and I think it's going to lead to greater issues. And so I want to talk about today how we can address that and how we can kind of let's see if we can flip that around 180 on that, right? So what is behavior change? Well, I mean, simply put, it's the process of developing new habits. It is taking a lifestyle that you have, and changing it. And that lifestyle is your behavior, right? So the way that you tackle each day, the way that you wake up and choose what to have for breakfast is part of your behavior, right? Or if you even choose to have breakfast. And typically, behaviors are going to be things that are like consistent in practice. They're things that you are consciously choosing most of the time. Like I was saying, like, what are you having for breakfast, right? That's a choice that you make every day. And more or less, it's going to be somewhat similar. And so let's move on from that. So here I have some core principles, I think, of changing in behavior. So we're going to talk about self efficacy in a little bit here, but self efficacy is building confidence in yourself. That is your will, your drive to get something done. And it's one of the most powerful tools that we have at our disposal. Another thing that we have here is goal setting. So goal setting is very important for making change in changing our behaviors, right? I think we even said here that someone goes to Zumba 3 times a week, regardless of what's happening. That's one of your goals, right? To go to Zumba, maybe 3, 4 times a week, or two to three. Like that's a really good goal to have. And I have here think smart. So if you didn't see my other lunch and learn presentations, I talked about SMART goals. So SMART goals are specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, realistic, and timely. So, meaning that specific, your goal is, say, with the Zumba, right? Your goal is to go to Zumba 3 times per week. That's specific. Measurable would be, looking time at a greater distance of time, right? We'll say, you want to go 3 times per week, and you want to measure your heart rate, say, right? Like have a lower resting heart rate. That's measurable. And then, attainable and realistic, kind of similar there. That we're thinking like, oh, is this something I can actually do? Sure, you can go to Zumba 2 to 3 times per week. But, is it like, is there a goal that you're chasing after with that? Is it a reasonable goal, or is it something that's kind of just out there? Like, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I want to run a marathon," right? You would say like, "Oh, I'm going to do Zumba to get my resting heart rate down," and then with that, then you can go on to larger goals and timely. And that's just to say, if we'll go switch kind of over to that marathon idea, if your goal is to run a marathon, it's not going to be probably in a week or two. It's probably months or even a year or two away, right? So those are the SMART goals. Um, into feedback over here, into feedback, we're looking at our progress and our outcomes. So when you're changing your behavior, what kind of progress is there? Most things aren't a night and day. All of a sudden, you're going 0 to 100, 180 switch, right? It's usually these things usually take time, and you're going to be tracking or looking at your progress throughout that time, your progression, right? And then looking at your outcome as well. So as you progress throughout whatever you're trying to achieve, you're going to see outcomes each week. You'll say, oh, the outcome isn't just the end result, it's the end result of each day, of each week, right? Of practicing a new behavior. And I put here that it instills motivation, accountability, and commitment. And I think that's true. I think that being able to see progress day after day, week after week, kind of reinstills this idea inside of yourself of like it further motivates you, right? And that's kind of this whole feedback thing here. And then social support, of course. So having encouragement from peers, your friends, your family, definitely helps. It's hard to do almost anything completely by yourself, um, right? Like you need a team of people to back you up. So very important to have social support. Self-efficacy. So I did want to talk more about this. Self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to succeed. It is the belief in yourself. I took a class a couple of years ago that was called sports psychology, and self-efficacy was one of the most important topics that we covered because whether or not you have social support, whether or not you have, progress to look back on and to motivate yourself, the only way to get started is by actually believing you can do something, right? If there's a career that you've gone after, and you were afraid of applying or afraid of an interview, right? If you believe that you can get there, you'll apply. You'll set up that interview. You'll go in and try your best, right? That's the self-efficacy. So believing you can, one of the most important factors for behavior change. I wanted to talk about a couple different models here to go over behavior change. A few different ways to kind of think about approaching behavior change. And the first one I want to talk about here is the trans theoretical model. Now, it's a kind of a long name, it's a fancy word, but the point of this is to show the different stages of approaching behavior change. So there's 5 stages. They are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, sorry, and maintenance. And so pre-contemplation, if you're thinking about starting to exercise, like let's use that idea, just simple, I just want to exercise, right? That's your goal. The pre-contemplation is you're not even thinking about it yet. This is not even a thought in your mind. You don't exercise now. You don't plan to, right? That's pre-contemplation. Contemplation, now we're thinking about it, but we're not ready. We're not doing anything yet. You saw an ad for workout clothes on Instagram, and now you're thinking, oh, I like this idea, but you're not ready to act on it, right? Preparation, now we're getting ready. Now you saw those clothes online, those workout clothes, and you think, "Oh, I really like those Nike shoes, those sweatpants, the yoga pants," right? You see that and you're like, "That could be me. I like this idea." And so you buy the clothes. That's preparation. Action, now you're exercising. You bought the running shoes. You bought the running shorts, right? You're exercising. But this isn't a new behavior yet because new behaviors take time to adopt and to actually become your new, not just behavior, but lifestyle, right? And so action isn't quite there. Maintenance, now you've been doing this for a while. It's been weeks, it may be months, right? Now that you're sustaining this habit, now this is the new behavior. So this is the trans theoretical model. It's just one way to look at that process of behavior change, right? The next model I want to talk about is the social cognitive theory. And I'm going to use this basketball team example, this like high school basketball team, right? So let's point out person X, right? Person X believes they are good at basketball. They have high self efficacy. This is going to be good. This is going to make them want to play. Right here, behavior, right? Because they're confident, they practice regularly and they volunteer to be the example in a drill. They practice, hard during practice, but also outside. They eat well. You know, they're thinking about basketball, right? So this person who's confident leads to their behavior, and in their environment, their teammates and coaches notice that person X is, trying really hard, is putting in all the time and effort, is confident, right? And so they're going to get more playing time, and they'll probably give some positive feedback too. Maybe they'll get the MVP award or something, right? So social cognitive theory basically says that your personal factors, right, your mindset about yourself is going to affect your behavior and also your environment. And these are all going to kind of work in with each other, right? I could have put some arrows here to point that they all go into each other. But basically, this is still stemming from having a high self efficacy, high confidence interval, right? So that's the social cognitive theory. The last model that I'm going to talk about here is the theory of planned behavior. I do apologize. This image is showing up a little blurry. I guess it's a little blurry with it being quite like expanded to fit this page here. And I was going to put some points on the side, but I think that this image uh, kind of sums it up all for me. And it's kind of like that previous slide where these arrows kind of affect itself in each other. So the theory of planned behavior it basically talks about how your attitude about something, right, a behavior change. We'll go back to the example of wanting to get into exercising, right? If you have a positive attitude and you think, "Oh, exercise is going to be great. It's going to make me feel better. I'm going to, fit into my clothes better. Maybe people will compliment me, right? This, and that. You'll be healthier in general. Like this is positive attitude, right? The next important factor of the theory of planned behavior is going to be social norms, or this image says subjective norms, but more or less social norms, right? So if you hang around people, if your friends and family are active, you're more likely to also be active. If, on the other hand, they're not so much, maybe they have, maybe they're more sedentary people. Maybe they don't like exercising or eating very healthy. You're more likely to be like them, and so that's what these social subjective norms are. So you want to be like your environment. And the last part of this is the perceived behavioral control. Fancy way to say, how do you perceive this? Do you perceive the idea of exercising to be difficult? If you do, you're more likely not going to do it. But if you perceive it as easy and you think, I mean, that's just putting it simply, right? But if you perceive it as being easy, then you're more likely to get engaged. If you bought your workout clothes, your Nike pants and shoes, and you're getting ready to exercise, you probably think that it's not too far of a stretch out there, right? You probably think, oh, this is reasonable, right? Thinking back to those SMART goals, this is super reasonable and attainable. I can definitely do this. If you have that, you have your environment, your social norms, being a positive one, not negative, of course, and you yourself are feeling positively about this thing, you're probably going to have a positive intention to get exercising. And what does this all lead to? All of these things lead to intent, and this all leads to behavior change. So, a lot of these models that I've talked about are easy to kind of intermix, and you can say, well, one doesn't lead into the other. It's not a step-by-step process, model into model, right? They're just different ways to look at how behavior change happens. And I think it's just cool to look at the different possibilities. But with behavior change, there are often a lot of barriers, right? Reasons that we don't do things. This could be related to exercise or not, or anything really. Maybe you want to brush your teeth in the morning and you don't do that, and you really want to do it, right? You might have barriers for it. You might say, "Oh, I have no reason to go into the bathroom. I have no reason to do, XYZ," right? So that's a barrier. But common barriers with exercise are often time. People say, "Oh, I don't have enough time. I'm so busy," right? Stress. They're like, "Oh, long, hard day. I don't have the time. I'm super high strung. I just want to chill, watch, The Bachelor, and then go to sleep," right? Knowledge. Exercise, surprisingly, it's complicated, or it's simple, but it's also complicated, right? And a lot of people don't have the knowledge, don't know about exercise and how it's important, why it's important, how to get started, right? So the knowledge is a large barrier. Anxiety. People often say that the gym is a very anxiety-inducing place, right? It's loud, it's crowded. There's tons of machines. It's always busy. I can never figure out what I want to do when I get there. So anxiety is a large, a great barrier that people have. And I'll go over the last two quickly. Accessibility. Maybe you live far from the gym. Maybe you don't have running shoes, right? These types of things. And then fear of injury, more common in sport than just personal exercising, but still, this is a valid barrier that people might have. They might think like, "Oh, I don't want to get hurt," you know. So barriers, these are very common, and a lot of people have them. So good thing to think about there. But just because it's a barrier doesn't mean that it's impossible to overcome that. So I have here just a couple ideas of ways to get around having that barrier. So time management. If you think lack of time is one of your problems, or sorry, not problem, a barrier, then we maybe should try to manage our time better. Maybe we need to go to bed earlier, wake up earlier, and go to the gym in the morning, you know? Or like we had, setting aside, um, like, sticky notes in time, having things written out, And so you can maybe put on a calendar, right? Schedule on your calendar times to work out, whether that's before or after your day. Incremental goals. So having goals, very important. You set little back to those SMART goals, right? We set specific goals little by little, time after time. And so instead of running a marathon, you say, I want to run 1 mile. Then eventually that becomes a 5K, a 10K, right? Half marathon. These are goals that you use to work up to. That way, that anxiety isn't there. That way, maybe you do a home workout before getting to a gym setting, right? Supportive environment. Um, I have another slide coming up here shortly that talks a little bit more about this, but basically, you want an encouraging space. You want to be in an environment surrounding by people that are helpful and ask you, "Oh, how was the gym?" Instead of saying, "Hey, do you want to chill for a bit?" And then reminders and cues, like the sticky notes, like setting um, reminders on a calendar or using your phone. Our phones have like multiple calendars, multiple ways to set notes and reminders and things. Using all of these can help us stay both accountable and with that accountability, consistent in our exercise for behavior change. So I said that I wanted to talk about more about the environment. And your environment may be a larger factor of a barrier that you might have than you think. And so, some common things I have written down here are reducing friction, right? So if you're afraid to get out to the gym, and you got to go upstairs or to the basement or something and find your gym bag with all the dirty clothes that are just strewn about just all throughout the room, it's going to be annoying. But if your gym bag is ready to go, it's right by the door or even in the car already, there you go. You're already on your way home from the store. You stop off at the gym, right? Visual cues, having your workout clothes visible. Maybe lay them out the night before. um, Schedule your exercise. Think about planning out what you want to do and when. If it's on a calendar for a specific day and time, you're more likely to do it than if you're just thinking, should I go to the gym today? Not so much, right? So you want to have it be visible and ready. And then social environment, you know, try to have some people that want to exercise. Maybe ask your friends if they want to go with you, and then you could build that like bond together with exercising. um, and then removing temptations. Maybe you uh, are an unhealthy eater, right? You really like those chips and ice cream. I mean, I do too, so I don't blame anybody for liking ice cream. But maybe don't buy ice cream and keeping it in the house. If you keep ice cream around, you're more likely to eat it. If you don't have it, then it's now a new barrier, right, to go out and get that ice cream. Same thing goes for exercise. If you're yeah, yeah. Basically, just follow all of these, and that removes all the temptations of that barrier to exercise. Moving on from here, I want to talk a little bit about motivation. So there's two main kinds of motivation. There's intrinsic motivation, meaning it comes from you yourself, and there's extrinsic. Think of external, right? So intrinsic means basically we're talking about self-efficacy again. We're talking about your internal reward system, and you think, oh, maybe you exercise for enjoyment. Maybe you uh, want to make the change to be healthier, and because of that you're going to exercise, right? You're doing it for you. Extrinsic, now we talk about reward systems, right? This is external. This is, you want to get in shape so that you get more compliments on how you look, right? Or um, maybe it's a friend asking you to work out and you really want to get to know this person better and become closer with them, and they invite you to work out and you go, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it for this purpose, right? So that's extrinsic. Someone's rewarding you for something, or you're being rewarded by an external factor versus something coming from within. So I have here, I can do this versus you can do it, right? Kind of straightforward with that. So bringing it back to the chat here, just a little question: which type of motivation is more effective? Give everyone a second here to get the response in. We have intrinsic. Any other guesses? Intrinsic again? Well, I'm not sure how many of us are in this call as of right now, so we'll go ahead and oh, hey, here's everyone. Okay. Depending on the person, yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, we'll move on to the next slide to talk about it a bit more. Well, more or less, it's kind of both. Um, Internal is, yeah, exactly, it depends. Um, Internal is gonna be that self-efficacy, that's kind of a stronger input. If you have that internal, self-efficacy, that willpower to do something, that's stronger than any external, like, validation you might get. But not to say that external is invalid or totally weaker, right? Because some people may rely on that external. Maybe maybe you do reward yourself with that ice cream each day, that you exercise. You say, "Oh, I ran today, so I get to have that cheat meal, right? That dessert or something, or I can only do this if I do this or something like that, you know? Or you go to like bike to a coffee shop to meet up with a friend. There's your little reward, right? So that's that extrinsic motivation. So all that to say is both are valid. So, the keys to successful behavior change, just a couple here are building that confidence, having that self efficacy. Think about those SMART goals. And speaking of those SMART goals, set them, set those goals. Clearly outline what your goals are and stick to the SMART. Make them accessible or attainable, realistic, and timely. And then have social support. I talked a lot about how self-efficacy is stronger than external in your like environment, but it's not to say that social support is a bad thing. It's actually very important to have that supporting friend group, right? Or family members. So if you want to engage in behavior change, assess your habits, look at what you're doing now. Do you want to change any of those? Identify any barriers you have. I talked about a few of the main ones. Think about what stops you from exercising, right? So assess them. Choose your strategy. I don't necessarily mean those like behavior change models, like the trans theoretical model and stuff like that. But just think about how you want to tackle this behavior change and find support. It doesn't just because self-efficacy is strong doesn't mean you have to do things by yourself. Um, Find a workout partner or a family member to keep you accountable and will help you engage in doing that. And that is all. Thank you all so much. Do we have any questions? Alright. Stick around here for just another minute. I am going to stop the recording here. But if anybody does have any questions, I'll be here for just a sec.